Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today will maybe be the start of a series that I'll be making called What If, which will go over some hypothetical scenarios from Disventure Camp that could have taken place if one critical event is changed. I have a few ideas planned for this series, but if there are any specific what if scenarios that you would like to see me play out, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Alright, the first topic that I'm choosing to tackle is an interesting one. What if Riya saved Lake in episode 8 of season 2? As a bit of refresher, let's look back at that episode. It was the slasher episode where Carol won immunity and granted immunity to Ali and Hunter. This splintered the majority alliance of 5 into 2 parts. Riya, Lake and Rosa Maria on one side, with James and Aiden on the other. Riya, Lake and Rosa Maria agreed to vote for James, while James, Hunter, Ali, and Carol agreed to vote for Lake. Aiden wasn't on board with either plan, instead throwing a stray vote at Riya. Put it all together, and the stage was set for Lake to be eliminated by a vote of 4 to 3 to 1. However, Ali told Riya about this plan, allowing Riya to know that there was likely a voting majority going against Lake. Since Rosa Maria told Riya that she had an immunity totem earlier in the episode, Riya realized that she could warn Rosa Maria and get her to play the immunity totem on Lake, saving her. However, Riya felt that Lake and Rosa Maria were getting too close to each other and leaving her as the third wheel, prompting Riya to remain silent, allowing Lake to be voted out. We know what happened next. Riya stole Rosa's totem, Rosa Maria left in 5th, Riya used the totem at the final 4 to eliminate Hunter, and Riya went on to finish 2nd in that season. But what happens if Riya does tell Rosa about the plan and they save Lake? Let's find out. First of all, let's address the biggest change. If Lake is saved with the totem, then that means James is voted out, since he had the next highest number of votes. With James gone, we no longer have the original winner of season 2, so no matter what happens from this point on, we will have a new winner of season 2, which is exciting to think about. Before we continue, there's one more question that we need to address. Is the immunity totem re-hidden and put back in play? Well, we know from season 1 that it's a possibility. Gabby used her totem in episode 7, and another totem was hidden in episode 10. At the same time, there was a 2-episode delay in re-hiding the totem, and it was hidden at the final 6 in season 1, and season 2 never really had a final 6, since we went straight from a final 7 to a final 5. So, if a totem were to be re-hidden, it would have to be right now. For this video, I'm going to assume that the totem isn't re-hidden, mostly because we don't know who would find it or how they would find it, and creating scenarios branching from each camper finding the totem would make this video too long. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video looking at each possible scenario if the totem is re-hidden. But for now, let's see what happens without the totem being in the game. I'm sure that Lake will be extremely grateful that Riya and Rosa saved her. The question is, would Lake be equally grateful to Riya and Rosa? Or would she be more grateful to Rosa since she used the totem to save her? Or would she be more grateful to Riya since she told Rosa to play her totem? I think Lake would start by thanking Rosa exclusively, but Rosa would then tell Lake that Riya told her to play it, prompting Lake to thank Riya as well. Riya would take it well, but I think the short moment of Lake only thanking Rosa would stick in her mind, making Riya ponder if she's the third wheel to Rosa and Lake. Also, as far as we know, Carol only voted with Lake so that she could lower her threat level, eventually revealing that she wanted to get revenge on James and Aiden. Since James is out, does Carol continue targeting Aiden? Or does Carol turn her attention to Lake since she tried to vote her out but she's still here? Considering Carol is described to be quite spiteful, I'm inclined to think that Carol still tries to target Aiden. So this episode will continue under the assumption that Carol still wants Aiden out. And one more thing. I still think the conversation with Riya and Carol takes place, allowing Carol to convince Riya that she's a good person and that Aiden betrayed her. Now let's get to the challenge. Since James didn't win part 1 of the challenge, the only thing we need to figure out is whether or not Lake would make a more original and personality-driven sled than Rosa Maria. Now, we know that Lake is going through her arc of being her own person, which might motivate her to show a bit more of her personality. But due to Lake's educational background and strict studying regime, I also feel like Lake would know what she has to do in order to make a sled that is strong. So because I'm not fully convinced that Lake would lean more towards personality over stability, I'm still going to say that Rosa Maria wins part 1 of the challenge. Now let's look at part 2 of the challenge. Since Rosa still wins part 1, she still gets to go by herself. I see no reason why Hunter and Ali wouldn't partner with each other, and I still think Carol would want Riya as her partner. So, Lake takes James's place and becomes Aiden's partner. Let's look at the conversations that happen when they go up the mountain. Nothing should change with Hunter and Ali's conversation, so let's leave it as it is. The same is true for Carol and Riya. I still think Carol instills some paranoia into Riya, making her realize that she may need to split up Lake and Rosa Maria sooner rather than later. But what about Aiden and Lake? We know that in canon, James tried to convince Aiden that Carol was targeting them and only succeeded when James showed Aiden a recording of Carol admitting to this. But since James isn't here, there isn't anyone to convince Aiden that Carol can't be trusted. Even if Lake takes James's place and eavesdrops on Carol's conversation with Riya, Lake doesn't have a phone to record the conversation to prove it to Aiden. Yeah, Lake did take James's second phone in the previous episode, but I'm going to assume that Lake gave it back to James between the end of that challenge and James's elimination. I just don't see any reason for Lake to intentionally hold onto it now that her life isn't in danger. But I will admit it would be fun to consider what would happen if Lake did hold onto the phone. But back to the challenge. I see Rosa Maria winning part 2 of the challenge, since that's what happened in canon. The only change made to the teams is Lake taking James's place, and if Lake and Aiden continue to debate Carol's place in the game, I don't see them moving any faster than James and Aiden did in canon. So, Rosa should still win this part of the challenge. The question is, who does Rosa pick to be her partner? She picked Riya in canon, but now that Lake is still here, does Rosa pick Lake to be her partner? I'm inclined to think so, considering that Rosa seems to be closer to Lake than she is to Riya. Oliver then becomes Aiden's partner in order to balance out the teams. But who wins immunity? Assuming Rosa is still using her sled, I assume the sled will break and cause Rosa and Lake to crash, just like Rosa and Riya did in canon. With Hunter and Ali, Hunter only made it to the end first because everyone else crashed, so if anyone else gets to the end first, they probably win immunity. That's why, and you can call me crazy, but I actually think Carol and Riya win immunity. In canon, we know that Carol lost the challenge last season because Aiden hid a spider on Oliver, causing them to crash. But since James is gone, and I don't see Lake being able to convince Aiden that Carol is against him without any evidence, there's no reason for Aiden to sabotage Carol. Therefore, assuming Carol and Riya travel faster than Aiden and Oliver, which I assume they do considering how Carol was able to catch up to Aiden and James in canon, then not only do Carol and Riya win immunity, but this also prevents Carol from being medically evacuated, which will impact the elimination. With Carol and Riya immune, who gets voted out? I think Hunter and Ali probably vote for Lake since that's what they did at the last ceremony. And even though Carol wants Aiden out, I think she's willing to vote for Lake because she also voted for Lake at the last ceremony, and she could see this as a way to increase her credibility with Hunter and Ali. Meanwhile, I think Aiden, Lake, and Rosa Maria probably vote for Hunter, since that seems like what they were going to do in episode 8 had Carol not given immunity to him and Ali. This leaves Riya with the deciding vote. And if Carol's advice further compounds Riya's paranoia about Lake and Rosa Maria, I think Riya makes the big move to take out Lake, betraying her closest allies in the process. Thus, Lake ends up in 7th place, only one placement better than in the original timeline. But remember, episode 10 only featured 5 campers, and we still have 6 campers remaining since no one was medically evacuated. So what happens? In my opinion, the most realistic option is that Crystal announces that the remaining campers will vote for a second time, resulting in one more camper being voted out. The reason why I see this as the most realistic option is because we already know that this is an option, since that's what Crystal did back in episode 3 with Kai and Connor's eliminations. I know there are other options, though. We could turn the balloon challenge into an immunity and auto-elimination challenge where the first camper to lose all their balloons is automatically eliminated. We could say the camper who is eliminated at the final 7 gets the sole vote for who is eliminated next. But I don't think those options are as realistic as holding a second vote, so I'm going to stick with the second vote. But who gets voted out? I actually think it's Aiden. With Lake out, I don't think there's anything stopping Carol from taking a shot at him. I think Hunter and Ali would agree because they would probably do anything that keeps the two of them safe. And I think Riya would also do it considering her current loyalty to Carol. So even if Aiden and Rosa Maria vote for Hunter once again, the vote is still 4-2, and Aiden is voted out. Instead of getting 3rd place, he only gets 6th, shaking up the game even further. Before we get into the challenge, I want to re-evaluate the game and see what everyone's current strategy is, as this will affect how the challenge plays out. Hunter and Ali obviously stick together, but do they stick with Carol and Riya to target Rosa Maria? Or do they try to get Rosa Maria on their side to take out either Carol or Riya? I think they take the latter option. Hunter has shown a willingness to strategize, considering how he kept Yul in the game to be a shield for him, Ali, and Tess. Therefore, he's probably thinking about what would give him and Ali the best chance to make it to the finale. And in this case, the move that does this would be to split up Carol and Riya so that they won't have to face them in a tiebreaker at the final 4. The same question can be applied to Carol and Riya. Do they stick with Hunter and Ali? Or do they try to get Rosa Maria on their side so they can take out Hunter or Ali? I also think they take the latter option, as this would also allow them to avoid a tiebreaker at the final 4. However, I don't think it will be easy for Riya to earn Rosa Maria's trust again. And here's another question. In this scenario, does Riya steal everyone's personal belongings, just like she did in canon? I'm actually not sure. I know that's what she did in canon, and I know that Carol persuaded Riya into thinking that she needs to do whatever she can to win. But in my opinion, the canon moment that made Riya realize that she could frame someone and get away with it was when she saw Aiden put the spider on Oliver, leading to Carol's medical evacuation. But since that never happened in this universe, I'm not fully convinced that Riya goes through with it. I will say this. Whether she does this or not, I don't think it changes anything. Later on, I'll explain why I think this is the case. But for simplicity's sake, I'll approach the rest of this scenario assuming that she doesn't steal anything. Now let's get to the challenge. I think the two duos would target each other. Based on how Hunter and Riya performed in the actual challenge, Ali's probable experience with first-person shooters, and Carol's probable lack of hunting experience due to her love for animals, I'm inclined to think that Hunter and Ali would knock out Carol and Riya first. I think Rosa Maria would be out next, only because Rosa Maria seemed notably passive in canon, so I don't think she would be able to tell herself to shoot before Hunter and Ali take her out. The question is, who wins between Hunter and Ali? Would they just fight it out? Would one of them sacrifice themselves for the other? Would they try and tie so that they can both win? Honestly, I don't even know if more than one person can win this challenge, but I'll assume they can't, just because Crystal specified this. Since it's camper and not campers, I'll assume only one of them can win. And honestly, I think Ali walks away victorious. We know from the last episode that Ali wasn't a big fan of Hunter always taking charge. So, it's possible that this lingering annoyance carries over to this episode, where Hunter tries to take the lead and make sure that Ali isn't getting hurt. Therefore, I can imagine Hunter and Ali being the final two, Hunter suggesting that he should win since he's a bigger physical threat, and Ali takes charge by promptly shooting his remaining balloons and winning immunity. It's not the prettiest victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. Now for the vote. With Ali immune, I expect Carol and Riya to target Hunter. Meanwhile, I can see Hunter and Ali telling Rosa that they will vote for whoever she wants to vote for, causing them to vote for Riya due to her clear betrayal of Lake. This leaves Rosa as the swing vote. And honestly, I don't see how Riya doesn't go home here. Even if Riya tells Rosa the truth about her betrayal and how she actually wants to go to the end with her, I don't think it would be enough to convince Rosa to forgive Riya and vote with her. You might think, well, Rosa forgave Riya in the finale after being framed for theft. But it's not the same situation. In this situation, Riya is asking Rosa to not vote her out. But in the canon finale, Riya is pretty much asking Rosa to save her before she runs out of air in her tank. It's different when it's a life or death situation. Also, the reason why Rosa was willing to help James in the finale is because she doesn't want to see people suffer. Well, in this situation, since she's the clear swing vote, I think she's making someone suffer either way, so that shouldn't be the deciding factor in Rosa's decision. So when taking that out of the picture, Rosa's decision to vote out Riya is still clear. But going back to what I said earlier. What if Riya steals people's personal items and frames Hunter? I actually don't think it would work. Keep in mind that the reason why the plan worked in canon is because Aiden and James were gullible enough to believe it. Are Ali and Rosa as gullible as Aiden and James? I don't think there's evidence to suggest that they are, so I don't think they would believe it. And if Riya frames Rosa instead, I think it's even less likely to work, since we already know that Hunter didn't believe that Rosa was a thief in canon. Therefore, whether Riya tries the plan or not, I don't think it changes anything, as Rosa still sides with Hunter and Ali to vote out Riya by a vote of 3-2. And with that, all three of our original finalists are out of the competition. So I guess Riya technically made the right choice in canon, but she also made a lot of other mistakes in canon, so I don't know which is the better route for her. But that's a video for another day. Again, let's look at everyone's plans going into the challenge. I would expect Hunter, Ali, and Rosa Maria to stay together to try and take out Carol. Although, I will say that Hunter and Ali would probably have a conversation about Hunter wanting to be in control, and they probably try and figure out a way to deal with this problem. I don't think they're at the point in their relationship where they would fight, so they probably either resolve it or push it down the road. As for Carol, I think she probably goes to Rosa and tells her that they need to work together in order to make it to the final two, noting that Hunter and Ali probably won't betray each other. Rosa agrees, but admits in a confessional that she doesn't know if it's the right thing to do. Now for the challenge. The first part of the challenge is basically running to a cliff and jumping off. Therefore, the results of this challenge should be dependent on who the fastest runner is and whether or not they're willing to jump off a high cliff. Based on the first episode where they had to run from the bus to the camp, the order in which the remaining 4 campers arrived was Ali first, then Hunter, with Rosa in third, and Carol last. So, I think it's safe to assume that this is the order in which they arrive at the cliffs in this challenge. If Ali gets there first, she probably jumps off of level 4. I don't think she has a problem with heights, so it's probably fine. If Hunter arrives second, he shouldn't have a problem diving off level 3 since that's what he did in canon. As for Rosa, there's a chance that she hesitates before jumping off, but I think she's adventurous enough to jump off level 2. That leaves Carol with the first level. Going into part 2 of the challenge, it's basically a slingshotting challenge, so whoever has the best accuracy and shooting ability should win. As a side note, since Rosa placed third in part 1, but there was no third place in the canon timeline part 2 because James opted out of the challenge, let's assume Rosa gets grapefruits as her ammunition, since those are larger than lemons and smaller than pineapples. Now, Aiden won this challenge in canon, but since he isn't here, someone else has to win. I'm going to assume that Carol loses this challenge for the same reason that she lost the last challenge. For Rosa, even though she mentioned that she grew up in a neighborhood where people used weapons, there's nothing to suggest that she's used any kinds of weapons that shoot, so I'm going to rule her out as well. That leaves Hunter and Ali. We know that Hunter didn't win this challenge in canon, but he wasn't hopeless either, so he could win it. And even though Ali didn't compete in this challenge in canon, her gaming experience could have given her the shooting and anticipation skills needed to accurately shoot Nina. I do think it could go either way. But I'm narrowly going to give this one to Ali, because I feel like she has better odds to win considering that she gets to use the largest ammunition. You might say, well, Riya had the watermelons and she couldn't beat Aiden. Well, Riya probably doesn't have the shooting background that Ali probably has, which might have played a factor in Riya losing that challenge. So, Ali wins this one. As for the vote, I think Hunter and Ali easily vote for Carol, and I think Carol votes for Hunter because Ali is immune. This leaves Rosa as the swing vote once again, and I don't think it matters who she votes for. If she votes for Carol, it's a 3-1 vote and Carol is out. And if she votes for Hunter, then Carol and Hunter have to compete in a tiebreaker, and I think Hunter has shown that he's capable of winning many kinds of challenges, so he probably wins whatever tiebreaker it is, eliminating Carol anyways. So for simplicity's sake, I'll have Rosa vote for Carol, eliminating her in 4th place. But hey, it's better than being medically evacuated in 7th place, I guess. Now we're at the finale. Before we get to the challenge, we need to figure out who each eliminated camper supports so we can figure out each finalist's helper for the challenge. I think Lake, Maggie, and Riya side with Rosa, since they were all her friends at one point. I also think that Kai supports Rosa Maria, just based on his interactions with her early in the season. Aiden probably leans towards Rosa, mostly because of his closeness with Lake and the fact that they voted together at his last 2 elimination ceremonies. Meanwhile, I think Connor sides with Hunter since Connor was willing to give him advice before his elimination, and I think Kel sides with Hunter because they were in an alliance together. As for Ali, the only person who I think she's guaranteed to get is Carol, purely because Carol might be impressed that she won 2 individual immunity challenges. Tessa's decision is difficult because she's close with both Hunter and Ali. I think in the end, she supports them both, and declines to help either of them in the challenge so she can remain neutral. James is the last one, and I have no idea who he picks, since he never seemed to be close to any of the finalists in this universe. I'll assume that he picks Ali, because Rosa voted him out and Yul is on Hunter's team, and James might not want to be near Yul considering that he poisoned him earlier in the season. Based on this arrangement, I think Ali picks Carol due to her competitiveness. I think Hunter picks Connor because Hunter admitted that he never liked Yul, and I think Rosa picks Lake due to Lake's overall loyalty to her. Now let's break down part 1 of the challenge. I don't know how each of the finalists will fare on skis, so I'm just going to assume that they are on equal ground with each other. If this is the case, then the quality of their helper will determine who takes the lead. In canon, both Lake and Connor did well when driving the snowmobiles, with Lake barely taking the lead. In contrast, Carol hasn't demonstrated any experience with snowmobiles, so there's no reason to think that she would excel at it. Therefore, going into the driving portion, we have Rosa Maria and Lake in the lead, followed by Hunter and Connor, with Ali and Carol bringing up the rear. In the driving portion, any of the campers are allowed to drive. I think Lake would drive since that's what she did in canon. I think Hunter would drive since he would probably want to be in control, and I think Carol would drive due to her aggression. Due to Carol's known aggression, I can see Carol driving really fast in order to catch up to the other teams. She might even try and hit the other 2 teams with her car. Due to this, I think she manages to pass Hunter and Connor. However, I still think that Rosa Maria and Lake are the first to get to the mountain, because Lake canonically kept control of her car while being rammed by Riya's car, so Lake should be able to keep her lead while fending off Carol's attacks. Ali and Carol would probably arrive in second, with Hunter and Connor bringing up the rear. The climbing portion is hard to determine since we don't have much information on whether or not any of the finalists are good at climbing. The closest information we have is that both Ali and Hunter can climb tall trees, and that Ali and Rosa have the leg strength to climb a mountain. And we also have to take into account the strength of the helpers, since they have to pull the safety ropes for the finalists. Connor might look strong, but he struggled to pull the rope fast enough to lift Riya in canon. And since Hunter is noticeably larger than Riya, I suspect that it would be really hard for Connor to lift Hunter, which would slow them down. Meanwhile, Lake was able to pull the rope fast enough to support Aiden in cannon, so I don't think it would be too difficult for Lake to support Rosa Maria. As for Carol, I don't think we're fully aware of Carol's level of strength, but based on her aggression alone, I think it would give her enough strength to support Allie, who supposedly weighs only half of Hunter's weight. So, Allie is probably pretty light, making it easier for Allie to make it to the top of the mountain. Taking all of this into account, and assuming that none of the finalists have a serious problem with jumping off the cliff, I honestly think that Allie reaches the dock first, followed by Rosa Maria, meaning that Hunter is eliminated in third place. I know that Hunter is widely seen as a physical threat, but with the way that the final challenge is set up, I feel like Carol's aggression, Lake's proven abilities, and Connor's struggles at the mountain cause Hunter to fall behind in this challenge, resulting in his unfortunate elimination. Sorry that you had to lose this way, Hunter. But at least you made it to the finale this time. Now we move on to the next part of the challenge with our final two campers. Assuming that Allie reaches the dock first, I think Carol's aggression would cause her to drive the boat really quickly, allowing Allie to maintain her lead before diving into the water. As for Rosa and Lake, Rosa appeared to drive her boat reasonably quickly in cannon, so she probably doesn't fall much further behind than she already is. The diving portion is difficult to determine since there's no evidence of Allie or Rosa Maria being good at scuba diving. I think the safe bet is to assume that they have no problems with diving. As for Carol and Lake, I don't think they would have problems directing their respective finalists through the caves. Maybe Carol complains about having to use a tablet instead of a map, but that's just me being nitpicky. However, I can imagine a scenario where Carol tries to sabotage Lake by throwing her tablet or headset into the water. This may cause the two of them to fight over the remaining headset and tablet. Considering that this would cause equal confusion to the two finalists, I'm going to assume that Allie's lead remains intact, allowing her to go into the final part of the challenge with a lead. The final part of the challenge requires the finalists to race a motorcycle around some obstacles while two other campers are shooting golf balls at them. Now that Hunter is out of the game, I can see him stepping up to shoot golf balls in order to help Allie. But for Rosa's helpers, it's not very clear as to who would step up. Maggie would probably be too scared, Kai probably doesn't want to resort to violence, and Lake is already helping by being in the boat. This leaves Aiden and Riya as the only options, and if I had to pick one of them, I guess Riya would step up, probably feeling that this is her way of redeeming herself to Rosa and Lake. Now we go back to the finalists. Even though Allie has the lead, I'm not sure if she can keep it. I know that Allie showed good directional instincts during the sledding challenge, but she also showed poor directional instincts when she crashed into a bush during episode 1. She was also on a bike in episode 1, so that incident might have more weight considering she's on a motorcycle for the final part of this challenge. Additionally, Allie's episode 1 crash happened when she was stunting while in the lead, and she's going into the final part of the challenge while in the lead. Therefore, I'm inclined to think that she taunts again and crashes, just like what happened to James in canon. This would allow Rosa Maria to catch up, putting them dead even going into the final stretch. And at that point, I think it would then come down to whose helper is better at shooting. And based on Hunter's cannon skill in the balloon challenge, I'm going to assume that Hunter manages to shoot Rosa off of her bike, giving Allie enough time to cross the finish line and win the $1 million prize. So we have our answer. If Riya gets Rosa to save Lake with the immunity totem, Lake only survives one extra ceremony, Riya is eliminated 3 places earlier, Rosa makes it to the top 2, and Allie earns $1 million that will allow her to live more comfortably. No need to rely on Twitch donations today. What do you think, Allie?
Yes!
Yeah, that's what I expected. And that about does it for this video. What do you think of my theory? Do you agree with my thought process? Do you disagree? Did I miss something big that would impact the entire video? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. If you ever go bike riding, please watch where you're going. Or else you might end up like Allie. Thank you, and farewell.